Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I hope you're all happy and healthy, doing the things that you love with those that you love to do them with. Let me just double check. Let me double check that my microphone is the correct mic. I think it is. I hope it is. I think it must be. Let me know if it's tinny. I hope you're all interested in tonight's show, guys. A lot of people have been asking, Sean, when are you going to get round to do these member shows? And so I thought, it's absolutely spot on feedback. I absolutely need to get those, get the membership, the member shows going again. When we did them before, we did them earlier on or late last year. I really enjoyed getting to know all of them. Listen, if you are a member of the channel and you want to come on and have a little chin wag, then the link is in the community section of the post. So if you go to the Spurs Talk Show and you are a member, then you should see a little post there that will have the StreamYard link. Come on and say your vibes, give your a piece. We've got lots to talk about. We can talk about any specific area of the game. We can talk about the transfers we need to do in the summer. We can talk about ticket prices. If you want to tell me I'm a capitalist pig, you know, whatever you want to tell me, whatever you want to talk about, we can talk about. At the moment, there's only one person in the background. So, you know, a lot of people have been saying to me, Shawnee, where's those members phone-in shows? And now I'm doing it. 150 members of the channel. No one wants to come and talk. Don't be shy. Just put your camera on and put your best Tottenham face together. No swearing if you do come in. Let me just quickly say hello to a few people that are here already. Potato Stew, good to see you, mate. He's saying, can't wait for this. So many positives. Looking forward to the takes. Well, yeah, if there's any, listen, at the moment, me and Drew are just having a one-on-one stream, so that's fine with me, but it's open to anyone. Big up, Shawnee. Keep up the great content, fella. Appreciate you, Mark Cook. Appreciate you, mate. Try my best. A couple of videos out today already. Did the one about the kind of game theory optimal versus exploitative managerial tactics. Thought I'd take a little thing from poker, and I think it's relevant. I do think it's relevant. So gone for there. And then I did a video about Nico Williams as well, because I do think he's something that we could add. Someone like him, you could add to the puzzle, to the available options. But I don't think he necessarily ticks every box as a midfielder or a wide man, rather. We will talk about it. Daniel Field's in the house. Pick up, Daniel. Good to see you, mate. Sonny is our most informed Premier League player thus far this season. Yeah, he's unbelievable, mate. Unbelievable. I didn't even think he had a particularly good game against Villa. I didn't think he was particularly good in the first half. I thought he was sloppy with his passing. But you know what? Gets the job done. Gets the job done and comes up with, 17 Fantasy League points. Absolutely destroyed my chances against Ben from We Are Tottenham TV. Brilliant player. I think if you look at the stats, someone put a comment in one of the videos I did today that outlined Sonny's statistics against relative to like Watkins and Haaland and stuff. And in terms of like big chances created, minutes on the pitch, goals scored, assist, he's right up there. Derek Smith saying Tottenham has spent £270 million player purchase since Postecoglou's arrival at the club. Do people really believe a new owner at the club would put passion for the club before profit for themselves? This is why I think, mate. You know what side of the coin I'm on this one. But listen, I'm always open to hearing other people's takes. Jessica's in the house. Who are we signing? Who are the signings for the 270 million? I mean, everyone that's at the club since Postecoglou's arrived. Who else we got here? Phil Coy's in the house. Drew's in the background. Good up, mate. Good to see you. Smash the likes right away. Shoes off, etc. Remember to sub and double check you haven't been unsubscribed. Thank you, Shenanigans. TY Shenan should be YT Shenanigans. F and Hell's in the house. Good to see you, mate. One of the mods. GCTV member for 5 months. Good evening, Sean. Evening. Smash the likes. Good to see you. Good to see you. Crod Squad. Hello, sir. Good to see you. Rakdos Madness. I'm still at work, but want to chat after. How long is the stream? It's as long as it needs to be, but obviously I don't want to go for like 3 hours or whatever. I'd rather keep it to like, 2 hours if possible. So, listen, if no one wants to turn up and talk, then we'll just end it after I've spoken to. There's 2 men in the background now, so we'll just play it by ear, see what happens. Tot Spurs in the house. Good to see you, Cantab Donovan. Good to see you, Mark. Good to see you, Tony. Good to see you, Paul Gartside. Where are you? There you are. Cantab, Croc Dog, Spurs, and Tony and Roxy. Right, let's get straight into it then. Let's bring on Druzilla.
What up,
How
bud?
are you, Drew? Good to see you, mate.
I'm good. You as well, mate. How are you?
Yeah, it's been a while, but it's never a while. I'm always talking to you in either Instagram or in the comments or whatever. You do a wonderful job keeping everybody in line in the comment section. Always appreciate
there's a couple of people that might disagree, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
No, mate, I'm very, very much appreciative.
Good.
How's things, mate? What time is it over there where you are, over in the West Coast or Central West?
We are looking 4:10 in the afternoon, and I had a cheeky little get off work early.
Nice.
So yeah, the sun's out. It's lovely. It's about 70 degrees, which it shouldn't be for this time of year. I guess that's probably maybe 20, 22, 24 degrees. I don't know. I'm terrible with the difference. Yeah, it's a lovely day. It's a lovely day for the beginning of March. It's my mum's birthday. Big up, Judy.
Happy birthday, Judy. Happy birthday to her.
Yeah, man.
Mate, let's get down to the nitty gritty, buddy. Where would you like to start? Wolves, Villa. Would you like to start with season ticket prices? Daniel Levy. Would you like to talk about transfers? What would you like to talk to me about, mate?
Mate, where do we start? I don't really.
Let's start with Villa.
All right.
Overall thoughts on the game?
Overall thoughts, fantastic. I get a little bit frustrated with this fan base. You know, it seems to be very, very reactive. You know, when we lose, it's everybody out. You know, the baby out with the bathwater kind of thing. Like I kind of felt like people have sort of not turned on Ange, but people questioning, you know, when things don't go as we expect it to go. But yeah, that second half yesterday, I think if that's a little microcosm of what we're aiming for, then I think we just need to be patient and wait for everything to come together. I think it's too early to judge him when even he said that, you know, there's at least 2 or 3 windows before he thinks he's got what he really needs. So I don't know, man. I think it's all positive. I can't say a bad word for the guy. I mean, you can be frustrated at times, but I don't know. I think it's a little bit misplaced frustration on here. I think the players are still gelling. I mean, if you think of the suspensions, if you think of the Asia Cup, African Cup of Nations, like there are certain areas of the pitch where there are players that, you know, you take a step back for a second, and you think, well, actually, these guys have only played 6, 7, 8 times together. You know, I think that those first 10 games led us down a path. Like, I don't know. I don't know if it was just a false sense of where we were, but I don't know. I think we just need to be a little bit more patient. I know that's hard for Spurs fans, but I don't know. I like to think of things really rationally and objectively, and I just think we're on a good path. I think if you were to take a step back and look at the season as a whole, if you put yourself in June last year, you'd have bitten your hand off to be where you are now, right? So I think we just need to take a deep breath and Andrew's got the keys as far as I'm concerned. Like, I think you need to give him time to fully realize his vision and then implement that vision before you can fully commit to saying, well, that vision doesn't work, right? If you're only halfway through something, you can't really pass judgment on it. You just got to go with it. And I'll take this over the last 3 years any day of the week.
What do you think the atmosphere, like, do you think, how do I say this? Over the last few days, everyone's just gone straight back. I've seen people coming out with, like, sort of looking at the run-in, looking at the points gap with Arsenal. You know, we're 11 points behind, but if we beat Fulham, we're 8 points behind. They've got to come to us. If we win that, they're 5 points behind. They've got to go to City. If City win that, and then if we win that game that weekend, I think it's against Forest, then it's 2 points. Like, there's all of this. Suddenly, we're maybe getting a little bit hot again under the collar because of a wonderful performance. But my question is, like,
that's the reaction of the fans, though, isn't it? That's the same group of fans that we lost to Wolves, and yeah, it wasn't a great game. but we did 2 smash and grab kind of goals. We weren't really on it on the day, but all of a sudden after that game, oh, everything's rubbish. He needs to do this. He needs to do that. Oh, I can't believe it. And now, you got the opposite end when everything goes right. I think we need to concentrate on us. I've watched football too many years to hypothesize about what other people might do or what other teams might or might not do. You can only concentrate on you. And that's like, so long as you can see progression on the field, so long as you can see players that really look like they want to play for the club, like that's the best you can ask for at this moment in time, right? If we were 18 months into a project, he'd had 18 months and we were still kind of blowing a little bit hot and cold, then I'd say to myself, all right, well, what's the actual plan here? But we're 7-8 months into a project and you can, like, the green shoots, when you see them, they're vibrant and they're green. And we take a few steps back, and like there is a little bit of you see it every now and again where there's a certain group of the players that kind of almost like revert to type a little bit. But still, I think we have an ability to grind it out. That first half of Villa, it wasn't great. It was awful. But I think you put it really well earlier on in your video, the way that the game panned out in the first half. We're trying to press them, they're trying to push up, and you've basically just got that red wall down that, that 1/3 of the pitch where everybody was just congested.
It's too tight.
It's really,
too tight for anybody on either team to be able to play football.
Right, exactly. Regardless of what you're trying to do, that's exactly right. It's too tight to really do anything. So at that point, you need to kind of have a breather, take a step back, right? And that's the half time. We come out at half time, we've got a little bit of something a little bit different about us. He'd obviously cottoned on to the fact that they've played midweek in Europe, so they were blowing a little bit at the end of the first half, you could tell. And I think he's just said, look, guys, patience, play your football, give yourselves a little bit more space. And that's exactly what happened. And look at the results.
Look, what do you think is the difference between, like, the way I've reflected on the Aston Villa game? I think that, like I said, you just hit the nail on the head, by the way, with everything you're saying so far. I think the difference in the first half and the second half, I didn't think we played particularly badly in the first half. I think everything came to fruition in the second half. And James Maddison have all come out and kind of intimated that, that they looked a little bit tired. And it seems to be a common theme that we do more in the second half as teams get worn out by playing our system that they're not used to. And we're increasingly getting used to it. And you can see by players like Brennan Johnson, whose fitness at the start of the season or even halfway through, he couldn't do 40 minutes of running. Now, I thought on Saturday or Sunday, it was incredible. So I think that there's a lot of kind of, ammo to the gun that's shooting the kind of message of we're going to get better as we learn this model. But it was only 2 weeks ago we put in an absolute stinker against Wolves. And we've had some really poor performances recently. And so I wonder, like, is there anything that's meaningfully changed in the last 2 weeks? Was yesterday or Sunday? What day is it today? Yeah, it was Sunday just a, like one of these moments, and then you might see us go back to, a bad version of ourselves against Fulham, or do you think it was a meaningful kind of line in the sand?
I'd like to think the last 2 weeks is just a consequence of us being 2 weeks older into the project, like 2 weeks further into training. Like the thing with Brennan Johnson, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, chat, because I have blown up a couple of times and I've gone off on one a little bit with people. Because the one thing I will say about Brennan Johnson, if you look at it objectively, when he arrived, he had an injury. So he had no pre-season. He's asked to play a completely different system. He's 22 years old. It was very stop-start at the beginning because he had an injury, so he couldn't play. And then when he could play, he goes off and joins Wales. And then I can't remember if he picked up another little niggle or another little injury, but there was a little bit of a setback. Then he comes in, then he goes out again. He's moved halfway across the country. Like, there are so many things that you can look at and you think, well, that kid's having to try and deal with a lot of things. And I think that his goal assist at the moment, taking into account all of that, I don't think you can ask for much more from a 22-year-old. That
It's
is
basically
just,
1 in 2, isn't it? 10 in 21 or something, or 11 in 22, whatever it is. Yeah.
Exactly. And this is the thing, like, with our fan base, and don't get me, I'm not trying to alienate myself. I love us all. We're very, very passionate about this club. And the main thing is that we all want us to do well. But the people that were praising him for a great performance off the bench and yesterday, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, were saying the guy was rubbish. He didn't have a clue. He was out of his depth. Do you know what I mean? And I just it's so extreme, one or the other.
Yeah.
And I just think,
Reactionary,
I don't know,
right?
man.
Reactionary.
Yeah, it is very, very reactionary, especially when he's 22 years old. Like, if he was 27, 28, and we thought we'd actually bought the finished article, then I'd be a bit like, come on, guys, what are we doing? But the fact that he's grown in stature, and I think that can only be in training, the coach putting an arm around him, obviously grabbing an assist and a goal every other or every 1 in 2. Like, he's gonna get better. The only way he's not going to get better is if he falls off, if he falls off socially and decides that he wants to, go and be an idiot and go on benders and stuff, or if he gets a horrible injury like Sessegnon. Like, I genuinely, with Brennan Johnson, the only way is up. He's got a really good trajectory, and we just need to get behind him. And I don't.
Do you know
it
what,
just
mate?
doesn't do
I've
any.
been massively impressed with him, his trajectory, because it wasn't that long ago that I've never been someone who's like, he's terrible, he shouldn't be here. I've never had that take, but I've questioned his fitness levels. I didn't think they were good enough. I didn't necessarily see enough working backwards for the team.
Right.
All that kind of, there's a few more bits to his kind of game, sort of feathers in his cap that he should be working on, and he clearly is. Like, the pressing that he's doing now, and against who did we play before this?
Wolves? No, Crystal Palace.
Crystal Palace. The pressing in the Palace game for that goal, which was the game changer, and the pressing from the minute 1 against Villa. You don't often see too many wing forwards, especially his style of wing forward, working that hard off the ball. And it's not something I've ever had the privilege of saying about him in the previous 6 months. Or for what it's worth, when he was at Forest, I didn't think he was particularly good as a worker off the ball. But he's really upped his game in that regard. And you have to give credit where it's due, and you have to hope that this isn't anything just momentary, that it's actually something that we're going to see more of. And if we do, then he could become a fantastic, fantastic player for Tottenham.
Yeah, I mean, my personal opinion, if you look at all the players since Ange has come in, I feel like there's very few that have actually fallen off. Like, everybody, I think, is getting better. Like Pedro Porro, I said I didn't think that he could defend. Well, I'm in the mud, eating my words. Emerson, when he's come in, has been fantastic. Romero, I think, has stepped up a gear. I think he, takes a bit more of a deep breath when he comes out onto the field. Van der Ven, just next level. I hope his injury isn't bad. I think across Udogie, ridiculous. Maddison, I think, is still finding his way a little bit after the injury. Still, I think he wants to do more, and I think he's putting him. I don't know. I feel like he's floating around a little bit too much, like trying to get involved. And I think, like, first half, second half, and I could see why he did it, but first half against Villa, we weren't in the low block or the lower part of the field where we weren't able to get the ball to him as quickly as we would have liked to, or they kept on breaking us down. It felt like he was dropping deeper and deeper to try and get the ball. And then, of course, you do that, and then the outlet ball's even longer. So that's more of a risk to try and get that out. And I think second half, I think organically, the way that the match went, I think it just enabled him to find a little bit more space. And I think he just had a little, another little second more, put his foot on the ball and just to, dictate the play a little bit more. But there's not a player that's fallen off under Ange. I just think that everybody is kind of learning their way, and they're just getting a little bit better game on game, week on week. And I think we're reaping the rewards, and long may it continue.
I'm just going to quickly grab a couple of these member 2-month milestones, mate, and then I'm going to ask you a little bit more about a player. You did mention an injury, like the injury risk to Brennan Johnson. I want to move to a player who did get injured in the game, and then maybe more his debutant, the guy who came in, well, not debutant, his replacement. And I want to get your thoughts on Radu Dragusin. Before we do, Tom Martin, big up, mate. 2 months, it feels like 2 years. Smash the likes. There you go, mate. Really appreciate you, Tom. I hope you're well. You could be joining us, buddy, if you want to. There's 2 guys in the background, by the way. There's Blaine Dev, the wonderful Blaine Dev. No one's seen his face before. We're going to see him for the first time making his debut finally on the channel. I'm looking forward to it. And there's X-Man. X-Man, do you have a camera, bro? Can you put your camera on? Because I've seen channels before where people come on without cameras and then all sorts of things happen. So I'd love to see your face. I know that you're a legit person before we bring you on. And look, if there's just going to be the 3 of us or the 4 of us, then I might just open it up and just bring it in as a panel, and then if someone else joins, then I can obviously just move you out one in, one out, if that makes sense. But thank you very much for your support, Tom. Really appreciate it. And Robin Owen's become a new member, but he's a renewing member because he's not sure what's going on, why he's not showing as a member. I do appreciate your ongoing support, mate. Maybe it just maybe the membership thing dropped. I don't know, but do appreciate it, my man. Do appreciate it. Scooter reacted saying the first game I missed live all season, we win 4-0. Well, go and do other things. Go and be Mother's Day every day, mate, and then we can win the league next season. Joe, you're going down very well on the chat, my man. You're very well indeed. Appreciate you, Robin, for the renewed membership, mate. Let's move on to X-Man's left. X-Man's dropped out, so he didn't fancy putting his camera on. He had other ideas. X-Man did. Let's bring in Blaine Dev then, and we'll make it a 3-ball and see what's going on.
Hey.
Welcome to the channel, Mr. Blaine Dev, making his debut on the show. Hey, Blaine Dev, how you doing?
Very well, Sean. Very well, Drew. Nice to see you both.
You as well.
Nice to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Great to see you, mate. Great to see you. Thank you as always for both. I always say it's both of you, brilliant members of the cast for the channel. I love the contributions you make. How's your thighs, Blaine Dev, after the cycle?
Never mind my thighs. My head's absolutely killing me. I was at a wedding on Thursday and Friday. Still
really?
Today, yeah.
Big weekend, was it?
Just a little. We're getting there, buddy.
Nice, mate. Nice. Well, let me throw the first question to you, and then I'll get Drew's take on it afterwards. Radu Dragusin. First time we've seen him get some meaningful minutes in games where we weren't holding on for dear life or whatever. He came in, played out of position. He's not, I think Ange wants us to move away from this idea of left side, right side, or kind of specific 6, specific 8. He likes to say, if you're a defender, you can play anywhere. And it looks like Radu Dragusin can do it. He played on the left. He's a right-footed centre-back. Usually plays on the right side or as a right-back, but asked to play on the left next to Christian Romero. And, well, Blaine, how do you think he did?
He just looked up to it straight away. I mean, we wouldn't have brought him in unless he had that class ready to display for everybody straight away. I think having Romero not on a yellow card helped. The fact that Romero's keeping himself a bit in check, is able to lead and show him that calmness, that coolness at the back. Yeah, I think it was a perfect scenario for him to come in.
Right.
I think, had we been 1-0 down at home to Arsenal, would you really want him to come in at that stage?
No, well, I'm glad we got to see him, though. And he didn't look out of place. To me, he looked consummate ease. He looks like he's got bags of pace as well. I don't think anyone's got the same pace as Van der Ven does, but he looks faster than Romero. And he got back a couple of times and really, and his slide tackles were well timed. He's good in the air. You know, for the areas of the game, like he's not going to be Van der Ven, right? He's not going to be Romero, but he doesn't look like he's going to be any trouble at all. It doesn't look like there's a meaningful drop off. And I'm delighted. What, was it 0-0 when he came on, or was it 1-0? Can't remember. Can't remember the timing of it. I think Van der Ven went down within about 2 minutes of the second half starting, didn't he?
It was 1-0.
1-0.
I think it was 1-0. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Drew, what did you think about Dragusin's start?
I think he's fantastic. I think he's fantastic. I mean, he's only really been bit part only the last couple of times he's come on. It's been for a couple of minutes here and there, but yeah, I think he's just slotted in really, really easy. I think Ange does a really, really good job with bringing players in, like you said, we've mentioned before on the channel about how he, makes the phone calls, and I just think he's got a really, really good character radar. The guy just seems to have fitted in. I mean, obviously, it probably helps coming from Juventus that he probably knows a couple of people, didn't he? He probably knows Bentancur, knows Kulusevski, so they probably helped to bed him in a little bit. But I don't know. I think the way that he's come in, it looked like he played more minutes than he has, and that's only encouraging to me. And he can take a knock in the sack. So and apparently just get up without even batting an eyelid. I'd still be down. I'd still be down now.
100%.
Yeah, fantastic,
lads. I just want to quickly press pause for 1 second on the chat because I want to get back to some of the other players in the game. But I think this man Kep who's come in, I think he must be a Plymouth Argyle fan. I guess because he's saying we have to return Alfie Devine back next season. Yeah, you do. Yeah. Oh, well, I'd imagine so. I think Tottenham are going to need to have 4 fully homegrown, fully club-trained professionals to participate in Europe. I don't think we have enough right now for that quota. If we do, then you're going to include Whiteman and Brandon Austin and that sort of like. And I'm not sure that's necessary. And Alfie Devine looks like he's good enough. But that's where I'm going to go next with you guys. Do you think that Tottenham? Well, we'll come back to the game. I want to come back to people like Pape Sarr and stuff. But do you think that Ange is going to give enough minutes next season if we have Champions League football? Is there a plan to see more from the likes of Alfie Devine if he comes back? Dane Scarlett, what's your thoughts on kind of, the youth team, like people like Jamie Donnelly? I saw him play against the Arsenal under-21s on Friday night, and he's just head and shoulders above that level. He's too good for that level. Mm-hmm. But is he good enough for the first team yet? Drew, I'll start with you, mate.
You know what I'd really love us to do? I remember back when Man United were winning everything. And the wonderful thing that Ferguson used to do is he used to drip feed the kids into games. So they'd get 10 minutes at the end of a game, 15 minutes at the end of the game. And then you'd find them Carling Cup or League Cup or whatever it was called back then. You'd have 4 or 5 of them in the first 11. And that would be where they would get all of their, the majority of their minutes and then sprinkle them into the league again. And just said that he would have loved to have had European football. And I think probably for that exact reason, the guy just wants more games to be able to bed his philosophy in and be able to bed these kids, these players in. And I think next season, and this isn't to belittle the cups, but I think if we are lucky enough to get in Champions League, we are going to make a push for the Premier League. Then I think it stands to reason that the Carling Cup and the FA Cup should be where we start to sprinkle these little bits of gold dust in. I mean, if Bergvall comes in and he's absolutely next level, and Ange says your first team, mate, you're going to go to Champions League, mate. If he says that, then I'm all behind it. But I think next year, Carling Cup, FA Cup is where you'll start to see, maybe even the likes of like Lancashire, Sunsop Bell, Donnelly, get 15, 30, 40 minutes. And I know there was this clamour to get the kids on at the beginning of the season because we had all these injuries, but I think we handled it the right way. I think if you'd have put Ash Phillips out there because we didn't have anybody else and he'd have been ripped apart and somebody had scored a hat-trick on him and he comes off the field, defeated and deflated, I think that really, can harm a kid. I think he's done it the right way. And I think, I think if we can do that Man United class of 92 philosophy, I think that'll be fantastic for our youngsters.
What about you, Blaine? Do you see, I mean, if that is the plan, next year we kind of use the Carabao Cup to kind of put those players in. Are the fans going to be okay with that, or is there going to be that natural reaction of saying, "Oh, we're disrespecting the cup again," and we haven't had a trophy, we're so starved of success that we need to take it more seriously than playing kids? Or is it right? Like you have to give these guys a pathway. Otherwise, what's the point of having a youth team in the first place?
So, like, if you're at home, say in round 3 of the cup to, I don't know, Oldham, Millwall, sprinkle in 2 or 3 of the youngsters, I think that's fine. But if you've got a tough cup game away, you have to play your best squad. That's always been my opinion. I think, and hear me out on this, it might be a blessing in disguise if we miss top 4. If you get Europa League, if you get Europa League next season, you win your first 4 games in an easy group. You have 2 full games then to go and play an experimental side. In the knowledge that you're safe in qualification, you're already through. You could sprinkle in Dorrington, Phillips, Lancashire, Soonsop, Bell. You can get these guys on the pitch playing a full 90 minutes or first half or first 60 minutes. That's only in a bad case scenario. Of course, I want Champions League football. Absolutely. But as a worst
it's interesting
case,
you're not the only person, Blaine, that says that. A load of people message me on WhatsApp or the people I speak to at the football, whatever, and they say, I don't necessarily hate the idea of being in the Euro. Like we're not going to win the Champions League in all likelihood, right? It's a step too far for where we're at, probably. And so put the money to one side, which is obviously the key driver. Apart from that, the Europa League is something you probably can win. And for the reasons you just outlined, you're not going to bleed Soonsop Bell away at Slavia Prague, even in the Champions League, right? Even a lesser level team in the Champions League, you're not going to do it. But the Europa League away at, I don't know, some team in Slovenia, you might do, or home against
Farmers FC United or whatever you call them.
Yeah. So
it's just a thought. I mean, like, under no illusion at all, I think absolutely if we get the results away, and like, let's be honest, April's a very tough month for us. But if we should end up in the Europa League, is it the worst case scenario in Ange's first season? Take it as a springboard. I don't want to call it a project because I hate calling it a project, but it's the next phase in his approach to his philosophy in our side. Having a year in the Europa League, making a push for the trophy, making a push on maybe 2 or 3 fronts. It's not the worst case scenario to consider.
The difference, Robin, between the Champions League and Europa League is about, well, depends how far you get in either competition, but to get to the group stages from the Champions League with the additional money for sponsorships and campaign prize money, TV money, you're probably looking at 60, 65, 70 million minimum. That was on the old system. Obviously, there's a new system coming in, and I'm not sure how that the numbers change yet. I haven't looked into it, but you're probably going to get 60 million quid if you get to you do okay, but not necessarily that much further in the group stages of the old Champions League. Whereas the Europa League's probably only about 12 to 15 million. And then if you go far in that, you can probably make 30 to 40 million out of the Europa League, but you could make probably 18 to 90 million if Tottenham were to do reasonably well in the Champions League across all the different kind of revenue pockets that would exist. So it is meaningful. And Tottenham obviously are always looking for the revenue. So if you ask Daniel Levy, he wants the Champions League. And obviously it would be important if Tottenham are going to go and get a meaningful statement signing. And that's where I want to go with you, next with you guys. That Ange said this week, even though the quote was taken massively out of context, all the screenshots were Tottenham are never going to sign a £100 million player. But beyond that, there was a lot more context. Him saying, well, I don't know if that's the case. I've never been around it, but I'd love it if it's possible. And I don't expect them to, but I'd probably rather have 2 50 million pound players over a 100 million pound player. Right? Anyway, I personally think that Tottenham could and should be in a position at this stage of our rebuild where you only need 4 or 5 players. You don't need 15 over the next 2 windows. You probably need 6 in total, and not all of them are going to be first teamers anyway. I probably think that Tottenham could break their transfer record. I think the days of 100 million pound players are probably few and far between now because of the FFP thing that's strangling the life out of the financial side, or it will do. But I don't think it's unreasonable to see Tottenham paying 70 million pound if the right player comes along, Blaine. What's your thoughts? Do you think that Tottenham and Daniel Levy are always going to be on the kind of miserly side of or miserly side of
just going to grab a drink. I'll be right back.
Yeah, no worries, mate. Of the transfer market, or do you think that we could probably go and get the right player if the right player became available?
It's an interesting thought, Sean. I mean, I still think there's a hangover from the poor recruitment that we had with Endon Belly, for example. It's a prime example. You spent 63 million, 200 grand a week or whatever it is, and you get nothing in return.
Yeah.
I think the philosophy that we have...
£110 million mistake that's been.
Yeah, it's shocking. Absolutely shocking. But the likes of Bergvall, for example, who looks to be a phenomenal talent. You have Ash Phillips, who has played phenomenally this season when he's gone out on loan. You have Alfie Devine. You're breeding through the younger talent. Is it a case then of going out and making, like you say, 2 statement signings of between 40 and 50 million just to put that experience and that guile into the team? I think that's a better approach than spending 90, 100 million on one superstar who may or may not fit into your system.
Right. And so if you were to look at, let's say £100 million spent on 2 players, but maybe a 60 million, maybe a 40 million, depending on the value. Where would you like that? Would you like that to be spent on a midfielder? Do you think we're okay in the midfield? Do you want to see it on a deadly winger, whether it's a Nico Williams, whether it's a Rafinha, go and get that guy back to the Premier League from Barcelona? Do you want to see us go and get a Dusan Vlahovic or a Ivan Toney or an Ollie Watkins, someone who can guarantee you 25 goals and also do a little bit more than what Richarlison can do with the ball, but also be a slightly different caliber player to what Sonny is? Because we know what Sonny's brilliant at, but we also know what he can't do. And there's a gap in that. If you're trying to play a kind of a one-on-one wing system, you need someone to be in the box to be that fox. And I'm not sure if Sonny necessarily is always going to be the right guy in that situation either. So where would you like to see the money spent?
It's interesting you touch upon Sonny. We've got to realise Son's 32, 33 now. He's only got a couple more seasons at his lesser peak, shall we call it, left in him. Do we go out and sign more of a utility forward? Like you said, Rafinha, I'd love to see him in a Spurs shirt. I think it'd be top class.
Rafinha, Rafinha, I'd love him. I'd love him. He's brilliant.
I'd absolutely love him. I also think the other priority area is got to be left back, because when Destiny Udogie is out, Ben Davies has got very little left in his legs. Sessegnon's injured 24/7. Is Regulian going to come in and fill that role? I can't see.
You know what? I'd love if we got Kieran Tierney from that lot up the road. I think he's class.
He's a good player.
Drew,
I think he'd be a great understudy.
Did he go on loan or did he leave it permanently?
He's on loan. He's on loan at Real Sociedad, I think, or Real Vallecano or something.
Good player. He will never come to Tottenham, though. Forget that.
No,
it's
never going to happen.
No, but with Mark Cucurella,
yeah.
Oh.
Him and Romero, best mates. Put the
I'm just putting the cat amongst the pigeons with that one. I couldn't see it.
Cucurella's a great left back as well. He's been disappointing at Chelsea though, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's not good.
Hasn't really. Although he can play, he's versatile. What we didn't know about Cucurella was that he can play on the right and the left. And that's what Chelsea obviously exposed that about him, which is.
If you want a fullback that can fill an arm system, Estepinian.
Yeah. He'd be brilliant. He'd be absolutely sensational. But he's not going to come and play second fiddle.
Could you get him for 50 or 60 though? That's the question.
I also don't think he'd come and be a squad player. He's so good. He'd want to play. He's one of the best left backs in Europe. So I think if he's not at Brighton, he'd want to play first team football somewhere.
Can I ask, right? Just going back to the Europa League Champions League thing. What do you guys consider to be the drop off in quality between Europa and Champions League? Do you think it's big? Like, you think it's a vast drop off in quality, or you think it's not that much?
What, the teams you'll play against?
Yeah, just in general, like just the competition. And the reason I ask that is because, is there an argument that if you were to get Premier League, Champions League, given the new format in the Champions League, I think you get more group games. I think there are. I think there's eight qualifiers.
8 games,
right.
8 games next season, I think it is.
So, if you take that into account, do you think it's possible that if you were to play Premier League, qualify for Champions League, that gives your team, not even just financially, but from a quality of football standpoint, let's say you are good enough to maybe, win 3, draw 2, and you've got a couple of games that are not necessarily nothing, but would bleeding youngsters into those games level them up quicker than going for a Europa League where the quality might not be as good And then when you also take into consideration, and I looked this up, this isn't from my head, if you go Champions League winners take home 83 million in prize money for featuring in every round, compared to only 22 million in the Europa League and 14 million in the Europa Conference. So, I mean, that's assuming that you get to the final. But every round, you're looking at what, $60 million difference. Like, if you take all of that into consideration, surely from the benefit financially and also putting your youngsters up against potentially better players, would you go for that? Is that a reasonable, or is that, you go for the Europa League because there's more chance of you getting further, whereas in the Champions League there might be more chance of you getting better? I don't know. That's just food for thought.
I think in terms of I think it'd be mad. Anyone that really would genuinely want Tottenham to finish, if you're a Tottenham fan and you genuinely want Tottenham to finish 6th or 5th in a world where the extra spot doesn't get given, I think it's more of a soft landing rather than a desirable outcome. I think that for me, the quality of the Europa League is bang average until you get to the quarterfinals. Like, you're playing a game, you might play one decent, you might play like a Union St. Gauloise or whatever, or a Metz or whatever in the Europa League in the group stages. But after that, you're playing some team from Albania, some team from Finland and Denmark and stuff.
Cheeky little away at Karabakh.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Go off to Botav Plovdiv in Bulgaria for a Thursday night affair. Sensational. No, I just think
Tottenham versus webcam code.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Wi-Fi password, isn't it?
Yeah. For me, there's no debate really. I think you have to want to be in the Champions League, and I think that you're even in the Champions League. I think you'll probably still play with the new system, with the expansion of it. The likelihood is you're probably going to pick, of the 8 teams you're going to play, 3 of them are probably really poor teams anyway that you should be going and smashing. And so it's just whether or not Ange is going to want to, and whether Daniel Levy would tolerate, because every game you win, you get like £1.5 million or 800,000 or something in revenue, right? So are you going to tolerate, even if you've qualified, even if you're doing okay, are you really going to tolerate, is the club going to tolerate putting out a riskier, lower level first 11 if it means you're only going to come away from Belgium, from Club Bruges with a point, whereas you could beat them? I don't know.
So here's the trade-off, though. What if you develop a player, say an Alfie Dorrington, who turns into a £60 million sensation in one season playing in the Europa League?
That's true. Yeah.
Is that trade-off in financial loss? Because you're only going to get, let's say you make it to the Champions League final, you're only going to get 40% of that filtering down as transfer budget or available funds.
Yeah.
You're never going to get the whole lot. So is the trade-off developing 2 or 3 players who suddenly become first-team regulars in 25-26 season a better trade-off than having a okay-ish run in the Champions League and suffering as a result in the league then?
Right.
It's always an interesting trade-off.
I think you're right. And I think that it's a massive area of the revenue kind of generating tentacles, if you like, or whatever, that Tottenham have always, or recently have always struggled with. And it's probably the area where you can see significant growth if you do turn an Alfie Dorrington into a 60 million. If he's a £60 million player, then you're probably keeping him, right? You're not going to let him go if he's that good. But if a player turns up and someone like a Phillips, someone like a Donnelly, someone like a whoever, insert player here, if they look good enough for someone else's eye, and you can turn and you can sell them for 25 million or loan them out to a Premier League club in the second season to let them really spread their wings, sort of like what Liverpool did with Solanke 5 years ago, 6 years ago. If you have that high caliber, they're not all going to fit into Tottenham. They're not all going to work out at Tottenham. Tottenham aren't going to need all of them, but you need some of them to at least have time to shine. And so I take your point, Blaine, Dev, that it's more likely for them to get that opportunity in the Europa League than it is in the Champions League. However, I'd point you back to the Conte system, when we went in the Conference League and we went away from home, and Conte basically left the first team at home, and the B team went out there and they didn't care. They all thought they were too good, or that maybe they read the room and thought, well, I'm only here because you're clearly telling me that I'm not part of your first team plans. The fact that I'm here with 17, 18, 19-year-olds, and it made a massive dent in the caliber of the performances. So,
but then I think it's an interesting, comparison, because Conte and Ange to me are totally separate, totally different characters in the way and they approach the squad. And it comes full circle back to the Villa result at the weekend. Villa looked out in their legs after 60 minutes, because they played midweek. Okay, they could bring Diaby off the bench, but that was about their only really good player they could bring on at that stage. You turn to us and suddenly you have 2 or 3 or 4 players who played on a Thursday night, didn't have to start the game, so you can rest Sonny, you can rest Werner, you can rest Kulusevski. Back end of the season, that's going to help us big time.
Yeah, well, I don't disagree. And look, I think the argument that Ange doesn't play youth, or that he doesn't want to give these guys a try, I think it's a weird one, right? Because he hasn't really given Donnelly too many minutes, and there has been moments when we've been in comfortable positions in games. At Newcastle, we were 4-0 up, I think, or maybe it was 4-0 or 4-1 at the time, where the game was dead, and he could have brought players on. I know we were only 2-0 up until injury time the other day, so I don't think there's necessarily that time there to give a Donnelly or a Dane Scarlett minutes. But generally speaking, though, like you can't say that he doesn't play young players when you've got Pape Sarr in the team, you've got Van der Ven in the team, you've got Kulusevski. All these players are still very young. Let's actually talk about Pape Sarr for a second. What are we doing with this guy? Is he unsellable? Is there a price point at which you would sell him? I mean, he's just unbelievable to me for someone so young to have the engine that he's got, the stamina he's got. He doesn't look like he's sprinting, but he covers ground like a racehorse. And obviously, he knows how to hit a ball he's almost falling over when he hit that ball. I've never seen a cross whipped in with such pinpoint accuracy, pace. Like, no one else I think that was one of the best crosses in the Premier League this season. Is he like our star boy for the long haul, or do you think that there'll be a situation where we're trying to find ways to raise money to keep the engine room ticking over with the financial side? You've got Divine coming through, you've got Donnelly coming through, you might have others, Bergval as well. Is there any conversation at all where you'd think that if someone put in a silly money bid, you'd accept it? I'll start with you, Drew, on this one.
I'd like to say no, but this is Daniel Levy, and not that I've got that sounded spiteful. I really have no problem with Daniel Levy. I think the way he runs the club is the way he runs the club. I'm very much kind of with you in terms of I turn right when I get on an airplane.
Same.
Some people turn left. Like, it's one of those. Like, I kind of understand the inner workings of it and why he does what he does. Do I like it? No. Can I do anything about it? Not really. He's put the club in a pretty decent position, all things considered. I would like to think when it comes to Sarr, I always look at when we're having a discussion like this, it's like, okay, well, you sell him for X amount. How much have you then got to spend to bring somebody in that's of equal or could potentially fill his boots? Now, that's a normal club. Then you ask yourself, how much would Daniel Levy spend to fill his boots? And I don't know. For me, I would keep him for as long as you possibly can, because I do think he has that kind of Vieira-esque feel about him. Like, as much as I hate referring to them like up the road, like, if he's Patrick Vieira and Bergval's Emmanuel Petit, can you imagine what the midfield's going to be like for the next 5-6 years? Like, if we can actually get something like that going. So I think as a team, I think the big people upstairs, I think they will look at how much they are going to get in versus how much they would have to spend to replace him. I don't know. I think with the way that financial fair play is, I don't know that you're going to get as much moving in the transfer window that you used to get. Like when we were talking about the £100 million players earlier, if you look at January's transfer window, the business that we did, the business that nobody else did, because everyone is worried about how much they're spending. Like, I just don't. I think the play going forward is going to be these young players like Sarr, like Bergvall, like Udogie, that all came in for under 20 million and could potentially, if needs be, could be sold for double, triple their profit. Like, I don't.
But you have to, at some point, you have to, unless the player's going to be here forever. I think like Tottenham have never really been a good team that sells players unless it's under duress. You go back to Michael Carrick, Luka Modric, Berbatov, Teddy Sheringham, like all of them. Either, they basically, we don't let players go. Gareth Bale, we don't let players go unless they ask to leave, right? But then you look at you look at the other clubs around us that have more success than us, but are not sugar daddy owned clubs, like Liverpool, best example, and they're willing to accept reasonable prices, Blaine, for their youth team players that are coming through. And also the obvious answer, example is Coutinho.
Yeah.
They sold him at peak value, at the peak of his. I'm sure there were Liverpool fans that were like, "Why are you selling our best player?" And then with it, they go and recycle, and they know where they wanted to go, who they wanted to get, and they got them. They spent the money perfectly on Van Dijk and Alisson. To Drew's point, if Tottenham, if we were to, I'm not just using Sarr, but any of them, right? If you were to sell Van der Ven or any of these guys, right? If you were to sell any of them, then there's always that doubt around whether Tottenham would use the money correctly anyway. But is Daniel Levy the sort of guy that's ever going to sell a player unless the player asks to leave?
I'm very much like Drew on this. It's Daniel Levy, and that's the biggest difference. You said about Liverpool. You've got Levy in your corner. Again, I'm not Levy's biggest supporter, but I acknowledge what he's done for our club. But to come back more to your point, if somebody came in the summer and said there's 80 million on the table for Sarr, Levy's got to seriously consider that. In today's market, today's climate, he has to take a serious look. Would I love us to build Sarr as the linchpin in our midfield with Bergvall coming in, the youth coming through, even seeing what Basuma can do in a proper system fit for a whole season? Absolutely. I would love Sarr to be here in 10 years' time, having been a club legend, gone on to do, like you say, like Vieira, like Toure, bolstering the midfield. I think he is of that nature. Yeah. I mean, he's demonstrating it now at, 2021?
Yeah.
But so much ceiling, so much potential. But you never know. If you turn down an £80 million bid for him and the next year he breaks his, God forbid, he has an injury or something was to happen.
Or turns out like
I don't think you look at him and see any kind of potential for him, like getting caught up in the the wild lifestyle sort of thing. I don't think that doesn't really strike me. He looks like he's more happier just playing FIFA, or whatever with his mates rather than going out and nicking birds or whatever. But
I just wonder whether in previous years, when it's been a case of the Berbatovs and the Modriches and the things like that, I think Levy has had a little bit of a complex where it almost feels like he's being bullied by the bigger team. Whereas now, I'm not trying to suggest maybe we have closed the gap a little bit, but I get less of a sense of him being the little guy that feels like he's being bullied by the big guys. And I feel like he feels like he's on more of a level playing field. If anything, I feel like maybe he thinks he's outsmarted all of these guys because he saw what has happened. He saw it coming a few years ago, which is why he doesn't spend, right? So I don't know. I always got the sense, especially like with Modric and Chelsea, he was never going to let that happen because there was no way he was going to let Chelsea get Modric. I don't think it was apprehensive to sell because he's already made a point of the fact that he enjoys money. I don't think it's a selling problem. I think it's a I think it's a little man complex more than anything.
Yeah.
And I just think now Tottenham as a team with the stadium and everything, I think he thinks that maybe we're a little bit closer to those people now than we were in the past. I don't know. That's just my
Off the pitch, we
2
are.
cents on it. Yeah.
On the pitch, I feel like we've still got a little bit of maturity to come, a little bit of experience. We need to, if we get one trophy over the line with a young team, even if it's the Carabao Cup, even if it's the Europa League. I think someone was asking in the chat a minute ago whether or not teams drop out in the new system. I don't think they do. I think there's 3 tiers to the new system. I think that you play 8 games, and then depending on who you play, and everyone gets picked allotted 8 random teams, but no, in the Champions League, it will probably be fixed on some level. And you play, some of them you play home, some of them you play away. You don't play the same team twice, or you play, I think, 1 or 2 of them twice, whatever, just the way the draw is. And then I think there's like 8 teams that finish in the top tier. They automatically go, I think it's 8 teams that automatically qualify into the last 16. And then, these maths don't work out in my head. So I need to go and refresh myself. But I don't believe any of them drop into the Europa League anymore. I think it's just
I think Sean is it. The top 8 automatically qualify. Then the next 16 all get into a random draw to play for the other 8 spots, and then the bottom 8 drop down.
That's it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Exactly right. But I don't think any of them drop into the Europa League anymore. I think that. But I could be wrong. I haven't done my research, and I should have done, or maybe I did, but I've forgotten. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the. I think Tottenham, if we can win a trophy, Blaine, then with the team so young, you look at people like Kulusevski, and I do want to ask you guys about Kulusevski in a second, because a lot of people split minds on Kulusevski. I thought he had a brilliant second half against Villa, but he doesn't get his flowers like other players do. But you look at him and you think he's a 26, 27-year-old, but I think he's only 23, right? Or just turned 24. Right, Romero's still young, right? I think he's just turned 25. But you've Van der Ven, who's super young. Udogie's super young. Pedro Porro's still very young, even though he's his prison. We really don't have very much experience in terms of years in the team. And if you could just get a team trophy now, or next season, then the future would be so bright, Blaine, wouldn't it?
As a springboard going forward, absolutely. I mean, to instill the confidence in such a young side, it's undeniable. It's going to give them oodles and oodles of competitive advantage going forward. But it's interesting to say about Kulusevski. He, honestly, you look at my hairline, that used to be twice as long, Sean, before the start of this season. He frustrates the absolute life out of me. He could be so brilliant 1 minute, and the next, it just... What are you doing? Why are you boxing yourself in with 3 players around you trying to skin the life out? See if he got his head up earlier and whipped in a ball to either back stick for Sonny coming in or with Richie fit to get his head on it. That man would have 15 assists a season.
Who's this? Kulusevski?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think, what's your, because like I say, I think the guy is criminally underrated. I know he's frustrating at times. I know he can be predictable. I've said it a million times. He is a frustrating player, and if you want to focus on the things that are visible and obvious, then you can find a reason to moan about him. But some of the things that he does that are such a catalyst to the movements, like the triangles he was putting up with Sarr and Porro, that is that sort of simple football that is unrecognized, unrewarded when the ball eventually gets down the other end of the pitch and someone else scores and someone else gets the assist, and it's the pass before the pass, so it doesn't count as a key pass. All those things go unrecognized on any stat website, but the rhythm of which he plays and getting the ball up there is so important. And I just don't, he's not a traditional winger. He doesn't come across like a traditional winger to me, or not one that we would look to want to have. We want someone who's fast and tricky and drives and one touch bang past people and then crosses the ball in. That's not the sort of player he is. But in the formation that we have, or that we play, he needs to be somewhere. And the obvious spot, if you've got Maddison in the team, the obvious other spot is to put him on the right side. But I just think that people give him such a hard time. And if people really pay attention to most of the games, he does a lot more than just the frustrating thing that you see, which I still acknowledge it is there, and it is a frustrating part of his game. But he does so much more than that
Yeah, you're right. He's never going to drop the shoulder and beat the last man for pace. That's not his game. Do you know who he reminds me of? And it's not the same position, but he done a very similar job for us and for the Republic of Ireland team in particular. Was Robbie Keane.
Yeah.
See that drive, that holding up the ball play, the battling hard for 90 minutes, going beyond, taking on the tough tackle, trying to win a 50-50. He does all that brilliantly, and it goes so unnoticed.
Yeah. Yeah, he does, mate. He does. Drew, what's your take on Decky, mate?
I really, really like him.
Are you?
No, here's the thing. Like, I'm a little bit mixed because I think the things that he does really, really, really well. But I also feel like there are times when he receives the ball and I can physically feel time slowing down. Like it's like, you know that
yeah, I know what you mean.
that comedian that does the oh mate, I don't know.
Yeah,
I think he's fantastic.
He's living in the Matrix.
I know, right? Do you know what I would like? I would actually like, and I don't know if this works. I would like to see Kulusevski and Maddison flip. I'd like to see, because I've seen Maddison out on the right for Leicester on occasion, and I just think if they were to flip, Kulusevski can play in the middle. He can boss number 10. I've seen him do it, and I think that if you were to put Madders out on the right, especially if you don't have a target man, but if you've got Richie in there and you've got Maddison whipping in balls with his right foot on the right, and you've got, Kulusevski in the 10, but maybe being able to go out to the left and whipping balls from the left. I don't know. I really like what he does well. He can be a very frustrating figure sometimes.
No, I hear you. And look, I think that there's definitely work that needs to be done with that front three. Yeah, let's not allow 45 minutes of extraordinarily good football where all three of the guys at the top end of the pitch got an assist or a goal or both, to kind of suddenly make paper over what I think has been evident to most people, that the reason why we talk every day around what do we need in the summer, and most people say priority is a winger, is because Kulusevski doesn't do what wingers do enough. But I think that's right. My point is, I'm not sure where you shoehorn him into, because I think he's a very valuable player. I think he could play as an 8. I think he could potentially play as a right back because of the system. I think he could come in. I wouldn't want to see it, but I think that there's that viability. He's such a strong player, and he gets forward and he drives and he's got an engine. And if there was ever situations where the team where you're playing against is down to 10 men, if we were ever to be down to 10 men like we were at Luton, that performance from him in the second half when he was the solo outlet guy, we were just banging balls, trying to hang on, just banging balls up to him, and he was just grabbing an extra 20 seconds, chewing the clock up with his incredible strength. He offers something that our team does not have in any other player. The kind of maturity of him on the ball, the way he can kind of keep the ball on one foot and use his arm and shoulder and strength on the other to fend players off. He's a very, very useful player. But if you're looking for a traditional winger to play this system, which is what Ange would want, then Kulu isn't probably the guy. So my question to kind of round off the Kulu conversation is, if Tottenham were to go and look again for a right winger, like a Rafinha, Pedro Neto who can play everywhere, and Nico Williams.
Can't do Neto.
You don't want Neto?
Well, only just from injury, injury in our medical staff. Like I can't do another session.
He got injured again, didn't he?
This
weekend?
He did.
Yeah.
And I think it was only like a little I felt something, but I don't need you to feel something, dude. Not like 3-4 times in a season, Yeah. And I really feel for Sessegnon. I think sorry, just to go off on a little tangent, I think some of our fans can be terrible sometimes. Kid didn't ask for an injury, and he's just feel for him. But no, I don't know about Neto. Sorry, not just to go off on a tangent there.
That's all right. I think you're right about Neto. He's far too injury prone. Availability is the best ability, and he's not available. Similar to Manor Solomon, I think there's a really good player in there, but I just don't see enough of it. What the question I was going to ask though is that if we were to go and get someone with that high intensity, high trickery, traditional winger type player, would there be a scenario where you could envision Tottenham letting go of Kulusevski, selling him for 35 million, 40 million, and again trying to raise revenue?
Yeah,
I'm going to throw a
absolutely.
question back, actually, Sean, on this one. So I'm surprised we haven't played Kulu more out in the left, especially when you watch the way with the inverted wingers that Destiny always cuts inside as a fullback, not on the overlap, but inside. If you Kulu making that run to the byline and cutting it back on his favourite foot, surely that's got to be more effective than him out in the right and having to cut back in. And then he's always looking to pass inside into a congested 6-yard box or a congested D. Surely, is it not better for us to play him out in the left, play Werner / Brennan on the right?
Yeah.
And then you've Son or Richie through the middle?
Look, I think there's lots of people that are wondering why we haven't seen it, but we haven't seen it, have we? We've occasionally seen when the game's been stretched that he's drifted onto that side, but it's not something that Ange has tinkered with. It's strange, isn't it? Because like obviously he knows his team, his formation better than any of us. He sees these players play in training every single day, and we don't. And yet there's certain kind of ideas that we all kind of have consensus and uniformity around that we'd like to see, but we never do. And there must be a reason why, right? Like, but it does. Like logically, you would think if you prefer your left foot, and Ange prefers his wingers to get to the byline, and one of the things that we maybe presume or assume about Decky is that he doesn't trust his right foot, even though I've never seen him make a mistake with his right foot. He's usually very good when he does use it, but generally speaking, he likes to cut in and whip balls from the deep. Like, if all those things are true, then what's the harm? Especially if Ange also likes to swap the wingers around and likes to keep the utility and keep people guessing, then why haven't we seen him play on the left-hand side ever?
Answers on a postcard.
Yeah, right. I can't wait for the day. I can't wait for the day when we've got left back, right back inverting, left wing, right wing inverting, and we basically just got like a mohawk of players down the centre of the pitch, and everyone's just going to play around us. So, you know what I mean? I don't get it sometimes, but it's like you say, he's in training every day. There's got to be something. He's either that thick-skinned, or there's just got to be something that he doesn't like in terms of the balance. Like, I don't know. Maybe Udogie and Decky can't stand each other, and if you get them both on the same side of the pitch, they'll, it's catastrophe. But
well, you know what?
I don't know, dude.
Chemistry is really massively important, right? I've said it a few times. We like Decky and Matt Doherty back in the day. Were brilliant when Decky first arrived. Those two just hit the ground running together like peas and carrots. And then when Matty Cash broke Matt Doherty's knee, and we had to I forget who stepped in. Was it Emerson? I can't remember that. My memory's terrible.
I think it was. Yeah.
It didn't work out quite as well. And I think you're seeing like Udogie and Timo, or Udogie and Brennan. Udogie has good relationships, but Pedro Porro and Kulusevski's taken a little bit of time, but it's starting to get there. I think Porro's a better player with Kulusevski in front of him than I think he is when he's got Brennan Johnson in front of him. And I think
action. Yeah.
I wonder whether if you've got Decky in front of Udogie, and then Udogie inverts and goes further forward than Decky, I'm wondering whether he's got something to do with he doesn't think Decky can get back, but then that would be the same on the right. But then maybe he thinks Porro could get back quicker than Udogie could get back. I don't know.
Yeah.
There
was a question here about Timo Werner. Someone asked a question about Timo Werner. £15 million. Blaine, is it value for money?
Well, he's got what? 2 goals, 2 assists in 5 games.
Is it only 5 games?
Yeah, it's not a bad return at all.
It's an amazing return, yeah.
I think let's judge it after 10 games, because if he goes off the boil, you know what's going to happen. Our fan base is going to say useless, don't sign him on a permanent. But in his current form, 15 million is an absolute bargain.
First goal was a tap-in, though. Brilliant play from Brennan Johnson. But it was super important because of what happened in the first half against Palace when he broke through, and I think that was just good goalkeeping personally. He could have hit it early, but he tried to overthink it maybe. But then he gets the confidence. The goal he hit at 4-0 for Villa against Villa, really, really clever outside of the boot kind of outswinging shot. I don't know if it was deliberate to quite do what
he looked up and seen where the keeper was and went, "I'm taking this first time." Opened the foot, great finish.
I thought it was fantastic. Proper finisher's finish. I'd like it. I like him. I think he's also a brilliant personality. I look forward to his German accent, saying words wrong. You know, he's a funny guy. You know. What about you, Drew? Are you on board?
Them wrong all the time.
Do you know what? I'm quite down with him. I've seen a couple of interviews with him where he's very just unassuming and just very typically German. Like I say, for 15 million in this day and age, like you can't really. I mean, to be honest with you, even if he fell off a little bit, that's the thing. We don't expect too much from Timo, so he's there. He's an extra body. He's got pace to burn. I think if he can get on the understanding, if we're going to play with that, really, he can afford to sit a yard off a defender, knowing that he's faster. And if we could get a few more of those balls from Skippy, where he I forgot what game it was. I think it was the Wolves game where he hit it on the half turn and skimmed it up.
Man United away, wasn't it? When he smashed it out down the, that was unbelievable.
I don't know which one it was. Yeah,
that was
if Timo can learn to just to hold it for a second because he knows he's faster than the guy he's facing. Yeah, I think with a little bit of confidence and Angie's arm around his shoulder, I think for 15 million you can't knock him.
The problem is, though, it does take up a non-homegrown spot in the squad. And so you have to make a decision around someone. Someone would have to go. Manor Solomon would if you want to bring in another winger, that is. Either Manor Solomon or Brian Hill would have to go.
I personally think Hill's gone in the summer. He just doesn't have the physicality for the Premier League. Sell him to a Valencia, sell him to a Red Up Betis, something like that. Where he has more time on the ball. It's not as physical. You'll get, 15 million euro, no problem for that.
And if you guys were in charge of the purse strings, and if, not money was no object, but let's say you had 100 million quid for 2 forwards. Oh, before I get there, what about Richie? Are you on the? Would you want to keep Richie?
Here we go again.
Let me bring in a fourth. We're gonna go for another sort of 15-20 minutes, guys, and then I'll bring in Alan, making his debut on the show. Hello, Alan. How you doing, mate?
Good. How are you?
Good, buddy. Good. Thanks for joining. Appreciate it. Nice to meet you. Blaine, we'll get back to the Richarlison story now. And we'll go around the table. Blaine, Richarlison, would you keep him? Would you sell him if the right money came in the summer, or would you?
If the Saudis came with 75 million, sell. If they don't, absolutely keep him. Going into a season next year where we need rotation in all 4 formats, he's definitely somebody that will give you 10 goals and assists in a season, even coming off the bench.
How about you, Alan? Well, what's your take on Richarlison, my man?
I like Richarlison to an extent. I think he's done very well, and I've seen a lot of improvement this year as opposed to last year. He was very expensive. I would be surprised if anyone, even the Saudi League, came in for that kind of money. I mean, I don't know how much they'd be willing to spend, but I guess, as Blaine said, I guess if they came in with like a 75 million, some way to recoup at least a majority of what we spent on him, I could see selling him, but I'd need to have someone to replace him. I wouldn't want to sell him until we replace him, because I think he's someone that might rise to the occasion if he's challenged, like if we got an Ivan Toney, or a Jimenez.
Do you like Ivan Toney?
I like his play style. I'm not really keen on his behind the scenes attitude. I think he's relatively polarizing, and I don't know that we need that at Tottenham. We have, as it is, our team is very likable. From what I've listened to on other channels, they say the thing they hate about Tottenham right now is we just have so many darn good, likable players.
Right.
And I don't know that Ivan Toney is a very sympathetic person in the background. So I'm not sure how I feel about him, but as a player, phenomenal. Just he is the Harry Kane replacement.
Yeah.
Same with Santiago Jimenez. Same thing. I think if someone like that came in, I think you sell Richarlison at that point, but not before.
So there's no space. If we were to go and let's just use Santiago as a Jimenez as a example. If we were to get that deal done for 50 million, just throwing a number out there, does that mean that you then have to, like, there's not enough room for him and Sonny and Richarlison if you want to give Alejo Veliz and all that, those guys some time as well to come through? Do you have to? Do you only bring one in if Richarlison leaves, or is there room for more than two strikers at the football club?
There's definitely more room, and especially if we make it into Champions League or even like Europa. I have no problem with Europa, by the way. I think right now the way we play, we do those spikes like we did on Sunday, where we kick the crap out of Aston Villa, but that doesn't always happen. We kind of play at a Europa level. And I would rather see silverware than make Champions League money, but go out before the knockouts.
Yeah.
Personally, I think I'd like silverware, and Champions League's awesome. I would love to be playing Champions League. I just don't think we have the team for Champions League right now. It's like the risk reward. I think we would go further in Europa, and I'd rather see the team go further and get that exposure and look good. I mean, it did good for who's it? Bayer Leverkusen right now. They're
amazing.
They're doing amazing, and they started in Europa, and now they're in Champions League. They're winning the Bundesliga. They're doing great, and I think we could do something like that as well if we get the confidence. I think the confidence we would get from winning Europa is a lot better value than if we were to just make it into Champions League and get knocked right back out. I don't see the benefit to that. I mean, the money's there, but even still. So I think there is room for Richarlison, especially if we make it into where we're playing 2 times a week. It should be important. But I think at some point we could sell him off because he probably won't get the game time that he wants to get, especially the game time he's used to getting right now. And it's kind of difficult to take away game time from someone who's had a lot of game time. It kind of feels like a regression. And Richarlison, I have a feeling he wants first team game time all.
Yeah. Do you know what, Alan? I think that's a really interesting point. And let me get Drew's take on this, and we'll go around the circle. I think what Alan's saying there is bang on. With Richarlison, I worry a little bit whether his confidence and his happiness, which is clearly what he has at the moment, is predicated on everything going his way. We saw the kind of outburst that the noise about when he got up to he was supposed to apologize under Conte, supposed to stand up and apologize for being late, but he took the opportunity to go off on a rant at the manager in front of the team about he's not getting enough minutes and the formation is terrible and the football is terrible and all this stuff. And I just think it's a little bit disrespectful. Even you can say what you want about Conte. I wasn't a fan of Conte, but to do that, to have the kind of, I don't know, ignorance to get up and to speak your mind, it doesn't bode well. And as much as I love the person, I really do love the person. I always have to kind of caveat this, and I do I'm enjoying the player recently. However, I think it's a lot of it. I'm worried a lot of it's because everything's going his way. He's getting the minutes. He's injury free at the moment. Well, he's not now, but he was injury free. And he had a lot of excuses lined up as to why things weren't going right. He couldn't trust people in Brazil, and people let him down, and mental issues, and yada yada yada. And I've empathized and sympathized. But if you take away one of those perfect, cocktail of everything right for him, and you suddenly put him on the bench because you brought in a Santiago Jimenez. Sorry, this is the longest question in the world, Drew. If you bring in another striker and you keep him, does he then turn into Moody Richarlison again, and all of the good work is undone? Is the question I'm asking.
I cannot take the amount of disrespect for Tottenham Sean Gota. Remember the goat?
Sean
Back in
Gota.
the that's who he reminds me of. He reminds me of that dude.
Man City player, right?
The goat. And to be honest, I'll be honest with you. If we are next season gonna win the League Cup, get to the final of the FA Cup, get to the semi-final of the Champions League, and still be there or thereabouts with 3 or 4 games to go in the Premier League, I think you need to keep him and you need to add to the squad. I think he needs another season, maybe 2, because there's something tells me that he thinks he's the man, and I think. And this could go completely wrong, and I could be in the absolute mud. But I think if you bring somebody in, I think with the amount of games that we've got potentially, I feel like he could be one of those players that 25, 30 appearances, 15 goals off the bench. Like, who are you going to get, and where are you going to go to get anybody else that at least has his like he's been in the Premier League for what? How many years? 5 or 6 years? Like he's been there and done it to a certain extent. Like who are you?
10. I think he's only got one, and he's got double figures once in his career in the Premier League.
Compared to Santiago Jimenez, he's done it.
Right.
Compared to Vincent Janssen, he's done it.
True.
Like, you can only go with what's in front of you. All right, you're comparing him to Harry Kane. Everyone wants to compare him to Harry Kane. But, I mean, since he's come back from injury, he put his money where his mouth is. He said, I'm going to be better. He scored 9 goals in 10 games. You can only score against the teams that are in front of you. Like, I don't know who you're going to get. Like, were we going to go and get Dominic Solanke? I mean, he's not exactly a level up.
Interesting one though, because I think he is a player who is doing better at the level. If you look at Bournemouth and Everton, like similar-ish, right? But Solanke's career is like done that. It's taken him a while to get going, but it's going like that, and you put him in a good.
Could you see us getting a Callum Wilson though, who's playing second fiddle to Isak?
I wouldn't want a Callum Wilson. He's kind of like a hitman, He's a gun for hire.
But what I mean is, could you get Callum Wilson as backup to Richie? Somebody who will give you 20 appearances.
Callum Wilson is the only person I know that's got 2 legs and 1 knee.
You obviously haven't met me yet, then.
I thought thighs were your problem.
No, mate, everything's my problem.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So hang on. So I mean, look, for me, if here's the conundrum. You want to keep everybody happy. You want to play enough minutes. If you get to the Champions League, depending on who you draw, you're going to go with your best team for most of the games anyway, and you're going to rotate here and there. But if you sign Timo Werner, he might be a bench player. He might be someone who can come in and just be that's fine. Brennan Johnson the same. I don't think those guys, neither Kulusevski as well. I don't think any of those guys command first 11 minutes all the time. But Sonny certainly does. I can't envision too many times next year where Sonny's going to be happy to sit on the bench and come off the bench, even though he's a happy guy and he's signing a new contract and everything. I think he commands and demands minutes. If Richarlison does as well, and if he doesn't get it, then he throws the toys out of the pram and starts to be unhappy again.
Yep.
I don't think he's of a level where he can command those minutes or demand those minutes unless he's banging in goals. But the second that you stop giving him the minutes, if the mood drops, then so does the form, and it's a spiral out of control situation. And I think that Tottenham need to level up. I think if you want to be the best, you need to beat the best. And I don't think Richarlison gets into Arsenal's team. I don't think he gets into City's or Liverpool's. I don't think he gets into any of the top teams in Europe. So I just worry, as much as I'm impressed with him and his turnaround, I worry that you have a potential ticking time bomb in a guy where if you do want to level up, he's not going to be happy. And then all of a sudden you see the worst version of Richarlison. And so going back to the Coutinho idea, do you sell a guy at peak value? And right now, finishing the season with 10 or 9 in 10, if he does come back, is there a chance you get your money back? Or at least a lot of it?
I agree with you. You sell high, totally would sell him if he was, as long as he continues his form through the rest of the season, assuming, when he comes back from injury that he's performing like he was before, then perhaps it is the smart move to sell him in the summertime, even if it means we don't have a like-for-like replacement for him just in the interim. We know that Sonny can play his position. We have people coming back from loan. We will, I'm sure, invest in another striker in the summertime.
Right.
So
and there's FFP situations, right? So there's going to be teams out there that might, like a Newcastle, maybe not Callum Wilson. I'm not a massive fan of. He's a good player though, but Blaine, to be honest, I do like him, and I think I agree with your analogy that he's a gun for hire. But I don't particularly want him at Tottenham. But there's another player at Newcastle who scored an absolute banger tonight in Isak.
Yes.
Right, and I don't know if he's available because Newcastle have got struggles, and you take him and he's a level up right immediately. So maybe there's other teams out there with similar problems financially that they need to get the right side of the line, and Daniel Levy can get to work.
When you say level up, right? And I'm just looking, I just brought up Premier League player stats, and I'm just looking at the top goal scorers. When you say level up, right? Number one, Erling Haaland, no way. Ollie Watkins, maybe. Mohamed Salah, no way. Jared Bowen, maybe. Dominic Solanke, Sonny, Saka, never getting him. Isaacs, got dodgy hamstrings. Phil Foden, never getting him. Cole Palmer, never getting him. And then next on the list is Richarlison. So of all of those people, like if you do get a bid come in,
it's a good point.
Who do you then go and get that's got the experience to at least step in, sit on the bench, and say, do you know what? I'm here. I can bang a ball in the back of a net if I need to.
If it has to be a Premier League proven player, then you might struggle. But
you could go with a Solanke, however.
The problem is though, right?
I just mean he's performing on a Bournemouth team that is not at Tottenham's level even. So we're kind of, he's a striker, but we're sort of comparing apples to oranges because he doesn't have the same service that we're getting from Pedro Porro or from Romero or something like that, where he could get the benefit of that and potentially bang in more goals. And he's scoring goals like Richarlison is scoring goals.
But do we also then run the risk of having a Johnson escapade where we go and get a Dominic Solanke because he's the slightly cheaper option? He's homegrown. He doesn't quite hit the ground running because he doesn't get a pre-season and he's carrying a little bit of an injury. And then we're 7 months into next season saying, "Oh, we should have bought Vlahovic. This dude's rubbish."
It's also interesting through that list, right?
I mean,
you've got Salah, you've got Palmer, you've got Foden, you've got Bowen. None of them are strikers, and they're on the goal scoring list. So, does the need for an absolute out-and-out Harry Kane or Haaland type striker become our preference in the summer, or do you want?
Sonny's not a striker, right?
No,
and he's our top goal scorer.
Increasingly, he'll become one though as he gets older.
Oh yeah, he won't
have the legs to be able to drive at players the way he has done. But I think he's the most clinical. I think he's probably the best finisher. Certainly, when he's 1-on-1, I don't think there's a better 1-on-1 finisher in the Premier League anymore than him.
Yeah,
he knows where to put it every time.
Mm-hmm.
He's incredible. I
agree.
I don't think we're going to solve this one tonight, guys. But I really have. We're going for 90 minutes. I've really enjoyed having the three of you on. Listen, I'll speak to you backstage. I'll get all of your. I think I've got your number. I've got Blaine's number. I'm not sure I've got Drew's or yours, Alan's. But we could do this as a panel show next week or in a couple of weeks if you fancy it, because it was a really easy chat.
I'd love to. Yeah.
Very good going. Do you guys have any social media, Twitter handles or anything you'd like to plug so the guys can find you?
I think you have mine already, Sean. You've fired it out before. I don't really post too much on socials. I'm very, very introvert, believe it or not.
You did brilliant. You did a brilliant debut, mate. Brilliant debut on the channel. Everyone's great. Everyone's knows your name, knows your generosity, and sees you in the comments. But it's great to see your face. And please come back. You've had a great debut. Same for you, Alan. Anything to plug? Any social media on Twitter or anything like that? I love your hat, by the way. I need to get one of those hats.
Oh, thank you. It's
really
I have a story with this hat, because this hat I bought in Lahaina in Hawaii, and
Nice.
a month later, it all burned down.
Yeah.
So the place doesn't even exist anymore.
Oh, wow. Is it a personal? Is it like a small brand? Then is it? It's not like a big brand hat. No.
It was just a restaurant there. It was a restaurant. They were selling. I think it was called Fishbone.
I like it. It's really cool.
I think it was called Fishbone. Thank you.
There you go. Well, it's a shame for the restaurant. Shout out to the restaurant. I'm sorry, hopefully they'll rebuild and come back.
Hopefully.
But listen, mate, appreciate you coming on. Great debut. Drew, this is not your first time on the show, mate, but thank you again for all you do in the chat, as always.
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
Like I say, I'll speak to you guys backstage, and I'll get your numbers, and we can make this. We'll do this as a panel show.
Big up, chat.
You guys.
Smash the like
in the comment
smash
section.
the like.
Absolutely. Subscribe and like, guys.
Subscribe and like. Yeah, get you on the panel. I'll get you on the panel next. Come on, Justin. Come on the show next week, mate. And then we'll get you on a panel show. This is how you get into the Tottenham community. You start off in the fan show, you smash it, and then you get invited on, and then people start to say, "Oh, I like that guy. Let me get his number, Sean." And then suddenly you're everywhere. And then 2 months later, you're starting your own Tottenham channel, and 2 years later, you're handling your own fan cams, your fan phoning shows. This is the story. It's the cyclical nature of being part of the community.
Sean, say it this way, and I want to shout it out to him as well. It's a shame to see Sava leaving the community.
Oh yeah, devastating. Well, I mean, I spoke to him about it. I think he'll be back. I told him, for God's sake, don't give your channel away. I know people would want to take it over, and I said, don't do that, mate. Just put it in hibernation mode for until you're ready, right? Because he's just, he got fed up with the trolls and he's not enjoying his time, and it's totally respectable and understandable. But I think that, listen, I've had moments, loads of moments where I'm like, I can't bother with this anymore. Can't bother with it, especially when like you feel like you're trying to be honest and you're with your thoughts, but you know that the popular thing to do is to be on the extreme end and flip flop, right? Like one day it's Levy out, because he's done something which is abhorrent, and you want to put out a piece of content so that everyone can tell you're right about that. And then the next time Levy, just using Levy as an example, but next time everything's good with Tottenham, then suddenly the Levy out thing is quiet for a while, then everyone's celebrating Levy. And it'd be the same with Brennan Johnson, it'd be the same with Ange, it'd be the same with Conte. And if you don't flip-flop, if you stay consistent and you stay balanced, then you're either not negative or you're not positive enough, or you're too negative, and it's and it ends, you end up not winning, right? Or you end up not pleasing anybody, and in so doing, you're just going to be a victim of people just going after you all the time. And at the end of the day, it's just free content for people. So I totally understand why Sava feels frustrated with it all. But listen, he's a strong lad, and he'll be back, I'm sure.
With fresh eyes.
He needs some time out,
Let's hope so.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, shout out to Sava. He knows he's always welcome on here. We'll get him on the next panel show as well. Love you all. Love you all in the chat. Cheers, everybody. See you tomorrow for Devil's Advocate at 1:00 UK time. Thanks, boys.
Cool. Big up. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.